Hello friends and welcome to Knowledge by Nature. In today's video, I'm going to be going over Primary Mathematics 3A and 3B from Singapore Math. If this is something that you are interested in, I would love if you stick around. Alright, if this is your first time here, I am a homeschool mom to a third grader. We love all things books, homeschool, and sharing our journey with you. And if that is something that you are interested in, I would love if you consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you find this video helpful, give me a thumbs up. If you have been with me any amount of time, you know that math is something that I've debated back and forth on what is the best addition for us. I love the Singapore method, so I have it narrowed down to that, but beyond that, it's like dimensions, which is here, primary 2022, which is here, and primary mathematics, the original, which is here and here. So you can see that I have come back to dimensions. Dimensions was what we started with. Then we went to primary mathematics. Then we went to primary math 2022, and then we went to dimensions again, and now we are back in the original primary mathematics. For us, right now, in this season, I feel like this is the best fit for us, but I do want to show you a flip through because it is much, much different of a scope and sequence from primary math 2022, but it is fairly similar to dimensions for third grade. I will be doing a video later on comparing side by side dimensions to this primary mathematics right here because I have both in grade level 3A and 3B. So if that is something you're interested in, drop me a comment down below, as well as know that it's coming, so hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my upcoming content. With primary mathematics, I picked up the Home Instructor's Guide, the Student Workbook, and the Student Textbook. I did that for both 3A and 3B. If this is a new program for you, primary mathematics is split up into 2 semesters. First semester, second semester, or first half, second half, however you want to say that. Let's start off with 3A. There are other books that go along with this, and I believe they're called, let's see, Additional Practice, and then I think there's one called maybe Challenging Word Problems or something like that. I'm not 100% sure on that. I don't use those. We use this in conjunction with Beast Academy, so we're getting 2 different levels of difficulty or different types of math learning, so I don't add any extra workbooks in with this. I don't even know that I need to add Beast Academy, but it just gives me an option for independent math days when those days occur. I'm going to set these over to the side and let's jump into the Primary Mathematics Home Instructor's Guide. So you have this preface here, which talks about the objectives. There's different notes. There's instructional ideas, suggested activities, games, reinforcement concepts, and then this points to like the corresponding textbook, and then we have the homework assignments. Something that can be really quite confusing with Singapore math or primary mathematics is that there are different editions. This particular guide can be used with both the 3rd edition and the US edition of this primary mathematics. And you will see right up here at the top that this says US edition. So this does coordinate really, really well with that. I have had no problems figuring out what I needed to do. Let's jump over here to the contents. All right, I think this is pretty important because I would want to know what exactly this is going to be covering. So remember, we have 2 different books here. This is A. We're going to start off with numbers to 10,000. Thousands, hundreds, tens, and ones. You can see here we're dealing with the thousands, the place value, and comparing 4-digit numbers. Part 2 is number patterns. Then we go to Unit 2, addition and subtraction, where we're doing some sum and difference, 1-step word problems, introduction to 2-step word problems. We are adding ones, tens, hundreds, and thousands, where we are doing some renaming. We are working with subtraction in Part 3. Part 4 is 2-step word problems as well as mental math, which is one of my favorite things in this program is the mental math practice. Then we go to Unit 3 with multiplication and division. We're doing a looking back, which is a review of anything that would have been covered in the previous level. And then we go to Part 2, more word problems. Part 3, multiplying 1, tens, and hundreds. Part 4, quotient and remainder. Part 5, dividing hundreds, tens, and ones. And this is with numbers of 2, 3, 4, and 5, working with the division. Now let's roll over here and we're going to be working with multiplication tables of 6, 7, 8, and 9. Again, we have a looking back section before we really dive into multiplying and dividing by 6, multiplying and dividing by 7, multiplying and dividing by 8, multiplying and dividing by 9, and then we come to money. You will notice that we are talking about multiplication and division because they go hand in hand. So I like that we're covering both at the same time. Let's go to money, Unit 5, where we're talking dollars and cents, addition and subtraction of the money. In my teacher's book, I have the answers to all of the workbook exercises and reviews, which is this student workbook right here. Now, this is only for 3A. There's nothing for 3B in this. They're completely separate. Here we see that I have all the answers to the textbook practice and reviews, answers to mental math, and then we have appendices. This is something that I feel is set up just a little bit differently than the Dimensions program for sure. This, you have your weeks that it's broken into, then you have these units, we have these different parts that you're going to be working on, the pages that will coincide with each of these, as well as the workbook exercise. You'll see right here that there's like a different game or additional practice that is done instead of workbook pages, specifically right here. I'm not too concerned with following this. I pretty much just go to the next lesson. We do one lesson. When we're ready for the next lesson, we go to the next one. But it does have this if you would like to use this. A long time ago, there was a lady that actually offered a free printable that would show all of the workbooks and additional practice and like when you should do each of them. It's no longer offered for free, so I didn't even link it, but there is something out there. Here you have a very short list of additional materials you're going to need: a base 10 set, number disc, multi-link cubes, place value chart, 100 chart, index cards, playing cards, dice, and money, play or reel. Even this, I don't use all of these things. I use my multi-links all the time, and we have a whiteboard that we use all of the time. So I did end up making some number disc. I found some free number disc as a printable on Teachers Pay Teachers. I printed those out. We really didn't even use them very much, but I had them nonetheless. Instead of looking at this one, let's actually go to like one of the multiplication ones, one of the bigger units. All right, so here we are at Unit 3. So we have review the multiplication concepts. That is our objective. Then we have the little notepad, which is notes to the instructor, providing added explanation of concepts. So you can see there's a paragraph here that is explaining how they're going to teach multiplication and what you may or may not want to bring up. For instance, they do not require the student to learn the term commutative yet. Next is the resources that we're going to need. So instructional ideas and suggested activities. For linking cubes, it's just giving us an idea of how we can set this up to really represent 4 times 6 can mean 4 times 6, which is 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6. Or 4 times 6 can mean 4 6 times, which would be 6 times 4 of 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. Next, we come to here where it says page 39, which is pointing us to the textbook. So if I open up the textbook here and I go to page 39, right here, this is where the first step is going to be looking back. The textbook is all in this pink undertones. No big bright colors anymore once you get to the 3rd grade level. This was actually something that I thought would be a discouragement for her. She has not minded this one bit, and she doesn't even like pink. So I really thought she wouldn't like this, which is why I didn't get it to begin with. So we know we're going to need that page. We know that we are going to need learning task page 40, which is the very next page, and that gives us the answer for number 1. And then we have some fact practice. So we are going to get some fact cards, and we are just going to practice some of the facts that we should know at this point. Here's an idea for playing a game. We're going to play War, where we set up different cards and we shuffle them, and it gives you all of the instructions, how to do it, and any variations. Now, after we have done the section in the workbook, which is page 39 and page 40, and played our games, we're going to go to the workbook exercise. This is where it tells us right there, but you don't generally want to jump right to the workbook page after doing some work. You want to do some games, the things that they talked about, then go to the workbook exercises. This is where it becomes independent for her. Here is exercise 14. You can see that they're giving them 4 groups of 6, and then she would put the math problem there. We have all of these questions here, and then on exercise 15, there were 2 exercises this time. Most of the time it would only be 1, but for this specific instance, we do have 2. Just quickly looking at lesson number 2. So for me, this would be the next day. If I did this on Monday, here's day 2. Now, if at any time it became too much, I would pull back some, and we might not do the workbook exercises that day. We might do another game the next day and then see if we're ready to go to the workbook exercises. So don't feel like everything has to be done on one day if you're not feeling like there's a good fluid forward movement with it. So let's just assume this would be Tuesday. We're going to review division of page 40. Another thing that I really like is that there are so many things that are combined, making these books really small. I like that a lot. So now we're going to be looking at a little bit of how division connects with multiplication. We know that something times 4 equals 28, which means 4 times something should equal 28. Therefore, 28 divided by 4 should equal this same box. So you will go through that a little bit together. Then we're going to look at different ways that we could separate these groups, break these groups up into these equal sections. Little notes for the teacher to remind your student, if necessary, that the division facts are related to multiplication facts. Then another little example that we would give them, and then here is our learning task for the day. So we're going to go to learning task page 40, number 2, which is what this section is right here, and we would find the answers to all of those. Next, we're going to spend some time practicing the division facts of 1, 3, 4, 5, and 10, and by part 3 of this unit, the student should know these facts. A suggested game is given here. So again, really game-based play, which works really well for us. And I love that it lets me know that, okay, if we haven't got all this by part 3, we need to hold off. We need to practice all of these things until we have this down. I will say that we are using times tables. It's amazing for helping her get the facts quicker. So just a suggestion there. It's really rather inexpensive and it works. For day 2 on Tuesday, we've practiced, we've played some games, and now we're going to go to the workbook exercise 16. So here you see we only have 1 that day. Exercise 16 is going to be page 47, page 48, page 49, and that would be the end of that one. So most of the time there's not a ton of work, but I feel like it's enough. So here is day 3, where we would keep on, day 4, where we kind of move into working with some word problems, and it follows along this same thing. Here is part 2. So remember earlier that it said by part 3 of this unit, the student should know these facts. So I know that by this point, we need to know these previous facts. If not, let's go back, let's work on some of these things before we keep going forward. For me, I think that's really helpful to know what it is exactly that we need to know before continuing further and further, before we're just lost. All right, so this pretty much shows you what a lesson is. I already showed you that the student book is pink. I believe 4th grade maybe is blue, if I'm remembering correctly. And the workbook is no color at all. So you can see there's different exercises. Some of them you can see are shorter. Some of them are a little bit longer every once in a while, like number 3 here, review 3. Oh, yes, there are reviews built in, which is another really nice thing about this program. So after exercise 25, we have 2 reviews, review 2 and review 3. So this just really helps solidify their knowledge of what you just covered. So I had forgotten to mention that, is that there are reviews built in. Now let's quickly look at B for primary mathematics. Here are the 2 teachers' books. B feels a little bit bigger. Sometimes B is like actually the shorter of the 2 from what I have seen in the past. But let's see what we are covering for this. Again, we have our objectives, our notes, our instructional ideas, games, reinforcement, the corresponding pages, and the homework assignments. Let's zoom in here for the contents. All right, let's look at the contents. So we have a suggested schedule and additional materials. We're going to Unit 1 is mental calculation with addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, the 4 parts of Unit 1. Unit 2 is length, where we're dealing with meters and centimeters, kilometers, yards, feet, inches, and miles. Unit 3, we're working with weight, kilograms and grams, word problems, which is going to tie in with the weight, pound and ounces. Unit 4 is capacity, liters and milliliters, gallons, quarts, pints, and cups. And then here is one of those little reviews that I didn't point out before. Then we have Unit 5 of graphs, where we're working with bar graphs, fractions for Unit 6, fractions of a whole, and then equivalent fractions, and we have another review there. Unit 7 is time, hours and minutes, other units of time such as seconds, years, months, weeks, and a review. Then we come down here to Unit 8, where we have geometry. Part 1 is angles. Unit 9, area and perimeter, where we are dealing with area, perimeter, and area of a rectangle, and then another review. Same thing as before, we have answers to the workbook exercises and review. I mentioned previously that there are different versions, the US edition and the 3D edition. Here you can see that US edition would have exercise 8. Here is the answer for exercise 8 of the 3D edition. So you just need to pay attention to these depending on which edition you had. Here is our suggested weekly schedule broken out very similar to how it was before. Again, we're seeing this US edition is going to be page 27, where here we have, then down here we see we have a US and a 3D edition. So there are some slight changes in those that you would just want to make note of depending on your edition. You are needing very, very similar materials again up here. We're going to need the index cards, the playing cards, the ruler, meter stick, the balance, measuring cups, fraction strips, clock, digital clock, stopwatch, and calendar. Many of these you can probably find free resources on so that you don't have to go out and purchase anything. And then everything else is just set up the same. In the back is where you will find some of those mental math problems, which I spoke of earlier, where we also have the answers to the mental math in the back. So all of the answers to the workbook and the solution are in the back of each of the teachers' guides or home instructors' guides, depending on which semester you're dealing with. So you can see here's the mental math for that. Really, really nice. One of my favorite things, and it's really not a big deal, but I love the smaller size of these books. I don't like a giant teacher's manual. It just doesn't work well for me. I do not enjoy using it. And that is one of my favorite things about primary math, is that all of the books, the student books, the workbooks, the home instructor guide, all of it's small. I really, really like that. Now, if you have any questions on this, please drop them down below. I'll do my best to answer anything that you may have. Like I said, I've used many of the Singapore math at this point, the primary math 2022, and I will try to link all of my Singapore math in the description below, so that if you're leaning towards one or the other, maybe one of these flip throughs can help you figure out what is the best fit for you in the season that you are currently in. Because honestly, it does change. What something might fit in first grade just may not work in second grade, and that's just part of the beauty of homeschool, is that you can modify when you need to. I thank you for spending your time with me. Consider hitting that subscribe button. And again, if this was helpful, I'd love that thumbs up. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.